Today's episode of Running It Back literally runs it back. We go back to college. You'll see what I'm talking about shortly. Before we get into that, April 2nd, you can see me doing live stand-up comedy via your Zoom screen, your computer. You don't have to go anywhere. I'm coming to you. Flappers Comedy Club is putting on another virtual show. I am on it Friday, April 2nd, 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can see me. Go do it. Check it out. I've done a bunch of them. They're always fun. Other great acts will be on the show as well. So, check that out. On the show today, James Bustamante. Who is James? James and I went to college together. Yes, we did. We talk about his background, his profession. James works in the film, video, production world, and he's come a long way. He explains to me how he got into college, how our paths crossed through intramural sports. Oh, do I have a lot of thoughts about that. And the future plans he has, filmmaking and beyond. And as you'll see, we have a lively discussion on the college we went to. A little bit different of a school than you might think. So get ready for that. I really enjoyed talking to him. And it was really good to catch up with James because I hadn't seen him in a number of years. We talk about it. So running it back, we go to college. Not to mention the new and improved Rotten Tomatoes head-to-head game. See how James did. Find out right now. Running it back with James Bustamante and me. Enjoy. All right, joining me on the show this week, I gotta say I'm excited about this one. It took a little doing to get this going, but joining me on the show this week, James Bustamante. Thanks for joining me, James. I'm glad we could do it.
Yeah, I honestly don't know why you're even having me, to be quite honest. I mean, this is the first time I've done one of these interviews. I mean, clearly, we were friends back in college, and we've kept in touch. But I mean, I'm not what I think I'm not necessarily interview material, but thank you for wanting to chat.
You're not? Get the hell out of here, James.
Yeah, I'm out. I mean,
James, I'm glad you work in production and not publicity. That was the worst intro you could have gave yourself. I am not interview material.
Well, I mean, hey man, like I don't have any awards to really speak of, but
not yet.
You know what? Exactly. Anyway, it's good to see you. I mean, it's been like, gosh, 15
I was gonna say,
years.
when is the last time we either saw or heard from each other? We'll get in how we crossed paths, but it's probably been 15 plus years.
I mean, honestly, I think if we're being exact, we're probably about 17 years since we were in the same, space.
That's probably right. Yeah.
I mean,
well, let me give you a proper intro. You are the photo video manager. You're the associate creative director where you work. We went to college together way back when, and we're both working individuals now. Where do you live now, James?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. So, where we went to school was Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I basically moved over one state. And
you traded one desert for another desert.
But you know what? This is a true desert. I mean, New Mexico, where we were at, we're at 7,000 feet. There's mountains, there's trees. Like, there's none of that here. I mean, like, you have rocks.
Nothing but rocks in Phoenix. People ask, like, what's Phoenix like? Rocks.
It's rocks.
Just rocks.
I mean, come on. That's all it is.
Just got a lot of rocks.
Yep.
Phoenix loves rocks. And I will say there's a lot of desert towns that could take a page from the Phoenix landscape plan. Like, we can save on water, just make a bunch of rocks. Nobody has front yards, just rocks. And if you want to get crazy, a couple cactuses in your front yard.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I working for a utility company. I mean, that's what you would ask. You don't want people with green lawns. I mean, that means that they're using up the little water that you have. So
Well, we went to the same college together, and then I was thinking about this. Our I don't think we had any classes together ever, even though I think I'm a year or two older than you, but I don't think we shared any classes. We saw
except
each other around campus except
except
intramural basketball.
and come
Well,
on, man,
I don't know the
tennis,
other one. What's the other one?
tennis.
Oh,
You
tennis. We played tennis. We did take a class together. Did we take like beginner tennis together?
Yeah, man, that's how we met. We met playing tennis and then continued playing basketball.
And then so people know the college we went to, very art centric, liberal arts, very small school. Um, Basically what I'm saying is nobody who played any sports went to that college. And yet we took tennis together and then we would play intramural basketball together. And I would say for a liberal arts college, not too shabby of a fitness center. We had stuff.
I mean, we were talking about it. We had like a rock climbing, what would you call it, wheel. Uh,
Yeah, rock climbing wheel. It just rotated and you kind of climbed or else you fell off of it. So not a true wall. Maybe like if there was a rock climbing particle board, we had that.
yeah, we had racquetball, which was fun. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you were interested we didn't have a sports team at all. We didn't have like your normal college fraternity or sororities. I mean, we were like the true like grassroots liberal arts.
That's a
And
good way of putting it. I never thought of it that way. We were the true grassroots liberal arts.
and
Let me ask you this. How do you describe the college we went to people when they ask you? Because it is a different kind of school, and the school no longer exists. The school closed. So we don't even have a school anymore. So when people ask you, when they ask me, I have to tell them like, oh, it's not a school anymore. It was kind of small. I think it's a TJ Maxx now, but we had
oh,
some good times.
you're actually doing it justice by saying it TJ Maxx. I mean, I think there were COVID patients being housed there recently, along with some homeless people that they were
Hmm.
using the dorm rooms to house, just kind of anything. I mean, really, the school was once, I think. So how do I explain that to people? I went to an art school. I went to an art school in Santa Fe. That's my answer. um I don't want to get into, unlike my intro, which was like completely not worthy. I definitely don't want to pitch my college experience as that. So it's just simple. Went to an art school in Santa Fe, and that's where I leave it.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Ironically, some of those homeless people in the dorms now, I think, have taken beginning tennis. So
yeah.
full circle.
You know what, they built that indoor tennis court, like state of the art
Oh,
indoor
good point.
tennis. And you know what? I think we used it for maybe 3-4 years before the school started to go under. Now I don't even know if it's available.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. Along the lines of like a surprisingly good fitness center for a liberal arts college, we had this awesome indoor tennis center too. And maybe that was part of the reason why I even signed up to take tennis is I was like, well, can we use this for something? Something that isn't like an art project? Does it have to be art all the time? Can I just play tennis, please?
yeah,
We did have an
and
awesome indoor tennis center.
exactly. And oddly enough, I mean, like, yeah, we're kind of cracking jokes about CSF or SFSU or whatever it ended up becoming afterwards. San University. I don't even know what it became after we went to it.
Maybe Coles.
Santa Fe University of Art and Design, I think, is what it became. When we went, it was the College of Santa Fe. But honestly, there's so many people that have come out of that school that I'm just surprised at where they are right now. I mean, when it comes to an art school and it comes to, just anything outside of your average education. There are a lot of successful people. I mean, there were a lot of really bright people. I mean, for me, I mean, I grew up in Las Vegas, New Mexico. So to kind of put that into context, um, the College of Santa Fe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, probably was the population was majority outside of the state and like very few in-state students because that wasn't a thing in these small towns in New Mexico. You weren't really striving to be an artist, really. I mean, I think you were happy if you got out of your small town and went to college. So a lot of the people that came in, whether you were in theater or photography or creative writing, film, beginning tennis.
Thank you.
Like, you got some pretty talented people. And, when we were talking the other night, I mean, you can start to list people that are doing things, which is pretty cool. I mean, I'm proud of the school.
You really enlightened me to that. I didn't know so many people came out of that college that are working and being successful in their field and largely theater and film and television production. But you said you're from Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Yeah, no,
really small town. How big is Las Vegas, New Mexico?
Probably 15 to, like, it ranges, right? Probably 15 to 20,000 over the time that I was there, maybe even less.
And you went to school for film. Did you always want to go to that college for film? Did you apply to other colleges, or was this your first choice?
I mean, come on, man. I like, if I thought that I could be a filmmaker when I was young, that was like watching a fairy tale. You know what I mean? Like, I think what's interesting about some of these fields and if you grow up in I don't want to stereotype, but I think it might be kind of true. If you grow up kind of in a smaller town where, middle to lower class, you're not dreaming big, you're dreaming realistic. And realistic is, I'm not working at, the gas station or, if you can just go to college, you've won. You've like won the game of life. I got a degree. So no, I didn't. And oddly enough, how I ended up at the College of Santa Fe was even more coincidental, in the sense that, I wanted to go to the big university just to kind of prove to myself, probably, and to everyone else, that, I could leave the town, for one, and then get a college education from a bigger university. So I got accepted to Arizona State University here in Phoenix, and I was supposed to move here with a friend, and things fell apart probably like 2 months before we were supposed to move out. I had already come to new student orientation. I mean, it was like, I was supposed to be here. And, it kind of fell apart because I couldn't afford to pay for the dorms, and I couldn't afford to be on my own. And to be quite honest, I probably didn't want to. I mean, there might've been a little fear there. So last minute, I applied because a teacher of mine, I was in high school broadcasting, so nothing like film, but I got to use a camera, got to edit things together, and I loved it. But I just never thought that was a real career. I think you think filmmaking and you think like, well, some people do that. That's definitely not me. I'll continue to go to the theater and watch the movies, but I'll never be part of that. So anyway, a high school teacher of mine said, hey, well, there's this other school here, an art school, and they have filmmaking. Maybe you'd like that. So I applied, and as you know, I mean, the College of Santa Fe, it's an art school. It was a private art school, or actually it was a private Christian school. It wasn't even really like advertised as an art school, because it was part of the Christian Brothers.
Right.
So I applied, and the tuition was not cheap to go to the College of Santa Fe.
Right.
But thankfully, like on a whim, it was either College of Santa Fe or New Mexico State or University of New Mexico the university there in Albuquerque. And I got a better scholarship to the College of Santa Fe, and it was like 5 times the amount for tuition. So not only was it a film school and I could attempt to follow this dream of mine, but they gave me the money to go. And I think it was because I was like the only in-state person wanting to go. So they're like, all right, we have all the money for you, man. Like, you know.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. Your New Mexico heritage helped you.
Oh, it
So
did?
so you always wanted to go to college? So in Las Vegas, you didn't have encouragement growing up from parents or other friends to go to college? What did your friends and family say when it came to college in those teenage years? Because where I grew up, I went to a private high school, and it was just understood that you were going to college. That was just the game. I never thought I never knew you couldn't go to college. I just thought everybody goes. And I had this friend who was a year or two older than me, and he would give me rides home from school. And he was notoriously failing everything in school. And at one point I asked him, I was like, hey, Diego, are you going to college, man? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, Patrick, we go to a private Catholic school. Of course I'm going to college. I was like, but you're failing everything. So it was just a foregone conclusion that you went to college. But what about you? You always wanted to go? How did you get the encouragement or motivation to go and apply and pursue it?
Man, I don't even know, to be quite honest.
Did you have encouragement from parents? What did your parents say?
Honestly, Patrick, I mean, my parents didn't go to college. So that's the first thing. And I think what ended up happening is, sometimes, I mean, I'm not one of those people that think like, or maybe I am one of those people that think that things happen for a reason. But if I really like thought about my life, like I was probably like, all the cards were set up for me to probably like not do any of that. Mm-hmm. But things happened. I got the right friends. I surrounded myself somehow with the right people, and those people happened to want to go to college and they wanted to do something more. And because of that, that became my goal. It became my goal to be good in school. Probably from middle school on.
You were a good student, middle school and high school?
You know what? I was a really horrible student through elementary. I got better in middle school, and then in high school, I knew it was one of those things like you were thinking like, this is a foregone conclusion, I'm going to college. For me, it's like, I want to go to college, but to go to college, you need to pay for college. So my mindset in high school was I need to do really well, because if I don't have like good grades, I'm not going to be able to go to college. Like, I think people nowadays take going to college like for granted. It's like, you know what, I can just fuck off like throughout high school, have whatever GPA, and then I can still go to whatever college I want. Like for me, it was like, if I wasn't like towards the top of my class, not only could I not pay for college, but I wouldn't even be accepted into college. Mm-hmm. So that was my mindset, is like, if you don't do good, not only you could give them the money, they still wouldn't accept you. You're just this kid from Las Vegas, New Mexico. I mean, I think that was really the way I grew up. And I think that was the thought process, that going to college was not easy. I mean, you really had to do things right. So I think I was like, like 10 or 11 in my class. I mean, my class was only like 120 people. So I mean, it doesn't say a lot, but I was in the top 10%. And I mean, I worked my butt off, man. I sometimes I had to beg teachers to give me a chance. I remember talking to it. He gave me a B. I mean, I was like 89%, and an A was 90, right? Like an A minus on your GPA. And I was like begging this dude to give me a chance, man. Like, I need the A. That was like a life and death thing for me, like going to school, getting a scholarship. So yeah, that was kind of my college thing.
What did your parents do?
Well, a lot. But no, I mean, for their, my dad worked in the railroad, and my mom was a dental assistant. So, you know,
Oh,
yeah, the one thing, there are a lot of things that, sometimes it's interesting. Like now that I'm an adult, I don't have any kids myself yet. But you think of all the things that you can do right for your kids. Well, my parents did a lot right for me, but kind of in the opposite fashion. So,
how so?
well, just, I mean, I'm not gonna, like, I don't want to. I mean, they're cool with me talking about them, but I mean, it was kind of rough. I mean, I grew up in a broken home, and both of them, had things that they were dealing with, and like clearly, it's kind of interesting because people these days, if they have something go wrong in their life, it's like easy to fall into all the pitfalls of life, right? It's like, oh my gosh, my parent is like so horrible, so therefore now I'm like this. It's okay for me to be this person. Well, I mean, somehow I didn't end up that person,
Hmm.
but it could have been so easy, So I learned a lot about what not to do, probably through the mistakes of my parents. They're still around, and you know, they're they're different.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, man, like my childhood was not like, I can't sit here and say my childhood was hard, because there are a lot of people that have really hard childhoods, but um, it was one of those that led you on a path that,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting, just the way people are develop in general. I mean, some people, they fall right into those cracks, and then some people somehow manage to get through it. And I don't know how, man. I just think I had good friends. I had teachers that wanted to help, and somehow I ended up going to college.
It
I
seems
succeeded.
somehow you recognized it though from an early age that this was a route that you did not want to take. You saw a sort of alternative to it. So in a sense, your parents, you like you said, set an example. I think about parenting a lot now because I think what was my parents' mindset at my age now? I'm 40.
Yep.
At my dad's age at 40, he had a 10-year-old son, which was me. So I think, what if I had a 10-year-old son right now? What if I had this? What if I was owning a house? What if I was working? Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And I think so much with parents, when you have something extreme in a parent who is really into sports, say, the kid either doubles down and becomes extra into sports, or hates and regrets sports for the rest of their life and resents their parents for it. Or you see it with disorders, with alcoholism. Either the kid becomes an alcoholic or never touches alcohol a day in their life. It's so weird how much the influence of the parent, they don't know it or they do know it, has on the kid. It's interesting. You recognize it fairly early though.
Yeah, I mean that was me. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the second one was me. I mean, my parents both were into drinking, and I mean, I did not want to touch alcohol. I mean, I remember the first time I drank alcohol was probably like 16 years old, and I know to some people that might seem like young, but trust me, people are drinking alcohol way earlier than 16. But after that, I mean, I never wanted to touch it. I mean, um,
No
you know,
drinking? You didn't drink through
I,
college, say?
I mean, I think, we might have had some drinks together, but I never took
I
it to
did.
the extreme, right? Definitely not with drugs. I mean, that type of thing, I was like, I'll never touch that stuff. And I never did.
Mm-hmm.
And to this point, I can say, like, I really still haven't. Um, but the alcohol thing, I mean, it was one of those things that I mean, all my friends in high school we'd go to these bonfires and parties like you do in high school, and
Oh yeah.
they were getting wasted, man. And I was trying, like, I wasn't drinking. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that was just not my thing. Or if I did, I might have had one drink, but it's,
Yeah. Did you ever do the sneaky, like take a swig and then pour a little out, take a swig, pour a little out? So that way everybody's like, oh man, look, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, I'm putting one down tonight, boys. Let me tell you, old Pat Ramirez is tying a bow on this one. But normally I would say a little similar. I was down to party, but more so I talked a big game. And then when it came to it, I pussed out. So I would say I had a job when I was 16. I worked at a baseball stadium and it was great. I get to drive myself to work. I drive myself back. But after the games, we would go try and get beer. And the person who would buy us beer was the mascot of the team, the baseball team. So we had this really tall, skinny black dude who was dressed in the chicken outfit, and he would buy us the beer after the games, and we would go to an irrigation ditch, and we had 40s. You remember 40s? I don't know if kids will appreciate 40 ounces anymore, but I would start taking a swig, and then I would say, oh shit, I can't finish this. I'm going to have to pour a little bit of this out. I'm going to water a couple of these plants here. So I would talk big, and then I couldn't come through. And the same way with drugs. Beyond weed, I was like, this is too advanced for me.
Yeah.
I would back out, and I'm probably still the same way. But yeah, with drinking, I was like, I got to do enough just to stay in the room.
Yeah. Just to stay relevant. Right.
Yeah. No, every once in a while I would go too far and I get super wasted, but it was rare. It was pretty rare that I would fall off the ledge like that. Although I'm sure it'll happen another 10 times in my life.
Yeah. It was one of the, so I mean, somehow like, yeah, you're right. You asked the question, have you ever kind of, faked it? And I didn't usually have to, but yeah, there were times. I mean, it's interesting in these small towns. I think it happens like clearly people think the big cities, of course, like you think of like, people do drugs and they do all this type of stuff. But you know what? The small towns, man, they are just like caked on, man.
You're right.
People just do that. I mean, I think there's probably like a lot of research and reasons why, small, poor towns, like they end up getting stuck in all these pitfalls, like alcohol, drugs, gambling, all these things that, really don't allow them to ever get ahead. But yeah, I mean, I used to go to parties and I was around people who were kind of hard asses, and you didn't want to come off as that person that didn't drink.
I definitely didn't want to be the person that didn't drink. You're right. That was a good acknowledgement on your part. Do not be that guy. That guy is a dork 10 times out of 10. You at least just got to do enough to stay in the party. Like when you have that friend who gets dumped by a chick or he's down and he's like has a bad attitude, you just want to tell that friend, all right, go watch the movie Swingers. John Favreau?
Dude, love it.
Do not act like that guy. Do not act like that guy. Just let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah, money, baby.
Yeah. So you go to college at Santa Fe. You majored in film from the start?
I did.
What was an 18-year-old James Bustamante's favorite movie going into college? What was your film?
You know what? I think Good Will Hunting probably put me over the top in the sense.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I remember like we had a drive-in movie theater, and I remember sitting in the back of this truck watching this movie, and there was something about it. I don't know what it was. I think it was studio in the sense that I think you had like the studio backing it, but it was like one of our independents that really kind of blended studio and independent, right? Like, it was very gritty for its day. I mean, I think what made it more studio, the way that people would think about it is it had Robin Williams in it. Like at the time,
right?
Bearded
Robin Williams.
They were nothing, right? So you had Robin Williams in a movie. So clearly it's like a Hollywood film, even though like it was very indie in the way that it was shot and the story. So I think there was something about that left me. I left watching that movie still thinking about it, and I thought about it, just, not every single day, but I mean, I thought about it a lot, and I went back and watched it a lot. And I think what it really did is it showed me that, hey man, like there's this art form that allows you to speak to people. And you know, Good Will Hunting kind of spoke to people in its own way. You know, kind of letting go of the past, letting people in, letting the walls down, you know, all of the little themes within Good Will Hunting. And I think it really just resonated with me, and it made me want to do the same for others, right? How can I tell a story that is going to make people ponder these things?
Well, I see the parallels in it too, as far as that movie story versus yours as well. Is the kid is in the hometown, he is able to get out, he doesn't want to get out, he fights essentially what the movie is, whereas yours is you're in the small town, you want to get out, and you have the tools, you're putting the tools in front of yourself to get out. I do see the parallels there, other than it is a great movie. I rewatched it a few years ago. I liked it way more on the rewatch than what I did when I watched it in the theaters a long time ago. It's really funny. It's really interesting. It's sad. It's really sad in some points too, where you're like, this poor kid can't get out of his own way. I really enjoyed it. Of course, Bearded Robin Williams meant instant Oscar nomination.
Oh yeah, man.
And he's not in a lot of the movie on the rewatch. I think he's in like 12 minutes of the whole movie.
But I mean, his role in that was like so solid. And I think, to your point, I mean, I think the one thing that probably, now that you are talking about it, was the friendships, because I think the one thing that I left high school with, my hometown with, were like those types of friends, you know, like the types of friends that, you know, would do anything for you, like whatever it took, man, like fights, like back you up, whatever it took, man. It was like family. And I think that's probably what resonated the most with me, especially getting to a point where I was about ready to embark on a journey that I was going to have to leave those friends, right? So I think in the end, if you really think about it, Matt Damon leaves his best friend to go off and explore this other world. And I think that's probably, now that I think about it, what truly left me is leaving that. You know, that's the thing about like leaving a small town is, I mean, here's what I do notice. Like in a small town, I had strong friendships. I mean, like family friendships. I see people in these larger cities and they just don't have that. And it's because there's like everything spread out. You know, my friends were a mile from me, 2 miles from me. I mean, we didn't have anything other to do than spend time together. You know, we couldn't go to a game, or when I'm talking a game, like go to a sport, like a professional sports game, or like there weren't those things to do. I mean, all that we had to do was hang out, like go
hanging out. That's right. Kids hung out.
We drove around, man. Like
drive around, just go drive around.
You drive on the cruise lane, man. Like I remember you'd go on Friday nights and like this like idea of people lining up on a street and literally just driving around, like traffic in the middle of the night. You've seen the same person pass you, you know, like we did that, and you did it over and over and over and over again. Like it's like crazy, the thought of it. But I mean, that's what you did. I mean, so, you know, the friendships there were strong, man. And I think that's probably what led to me really connecting with that film. But I think overall it was the idea that film could speak to people. Film like has no boundaries, man. It's like such a cool art form. You know, you can have a voice if you use it right.
Forgetting all the film stuff, describe your intramural basketball game to me. We played a lot of intramurals. Would you say you were point guard, forward, power forward, enforcer?
Oh man, I was a guard, man. There's no way. I was guard. I was never tall. And you have to remember this. I could shoot the three, man.
Okay, you had an outside game. That's right.
I had an outside game, but when I went into the middle, you remember, who was it? really tall. Oh man, I'm forgetting his name, but you didn't go in the middle, man. You just get swatted. I mean, I'm not short.
By really tall, we mean 6'3" too. That was our really tall. That was our Shaq.
Exactly. But I mean, here's the thing, man. I'm a 5'10", 5'9", 5'10" Hispanic guy. Like I was athletic, but I wasn't like dunking, you know, like you have people out there that are athletic, they're short and they have hops, they have all that. I mean, I was okay. So,
yeah.
I mean,
so you played the guard, you're outside shooter. How are you on D? Were you D'ing up people at half court? Did you like to, okay. I can see that. I can see you being like a feisty, what would I liken this to? Maybe a Mark Jackson-esque sort of defender. A lot of hand checking.
Well, here's
a lot of bodying up.
Here's the one thing about playing intramural basketball at a art school.
Right. We should preface. That's true.
Yeah. Like you have some athletes, right? The one thing about me and throughout my younger years is I was always an athlete. And that's probably the other thing that helped kind of propel me into, you know, taking the right path. So, I mean, I played football, basketball, ran track. The big one is I played soccer during high school. So, I mean, if I could run the length of a football field back and forth, like running a little basketball court was nothing. So I can tell you that like my strength was the fact that I could just outrun everybody. Like, and that's where in college, art school, college, intramural basketball, if you could outrun and just out endure, like it didn't matter what your game was, man. You could get to the other end and miss a layup and get it back and still make it.
Yeah, good point. Maybe I'm along the same lines too. I grew up playing sports and I wasn't super athletic at basketball, but I could play okay. But I needed 20 minutes of play running down the court when everybody was tired. I was not tired because I was fit. I was in shape. And then that's where I could shine. That's when I would drive to the hoop. First 20 minutes, a lot of pulling up, a lot of fadeaway shots, a lot of giving the ball off to somebody else. I needed 20 minutes and then I was good to go. My game was a little more, I would sort of hover around the block, the forward sort of position. Mm-hmm. And my one move was the fadeaway jumper. I would have to be, but it was very specific. I had to be on the right side block on the lane. I had to get the ball on my hip and I had to spin right and fade away. Other side, I couldn't do it on the other side. I had to be on the right side. And I was good for like, probably 50%. I wouldn't make it that much, but that was my one move. I would fade away and I would try and hit the jumper. So
you're a lefty, weren't you?
I'm left-handed, right. So I needed to spin right and I needed to shoot it. I was modeling my game off of a very young Kevin McHale. It was my move. Very lanky, floppy, black-haired Kevin McHale.
Yep, I remember.
I didn't know you had a sports background. What are you a sports guy? Do you follow certain sports?
Oh yeah, man. I watched. I'm like literally one of the kids that sat there on the carpet with one of those TVs that was like the size of a dresser, with the knob, and watched Michael Jordan against the Cleveland Cavaliers hit that game-winning jumper from the free throw line. As a kid, I watched that live. I didn't even know what I was watching at the time. I just luckily
that had to be mid-'80s.
Yeah. I watched that game and it stuck with me and I became a Jordan fan.
So you're a Jordan guy.
Oh man, I was a Jordan guy. I mean, Jordan probably himself, little does he know, made me an athlete. I mean, everyone wanted to be like Mike. Come on, man.
Right? Definitely. Huge Michael Jordan. The 90s, we talk a lot about the 90s. We talk about grunge music, great era for music, probably the pinnacle of sitcom, great movies, but we forget about the Jordan influence. Jordan was his own thing, commercials, superior play, international draw to him. And then like boys and girls loved Jordan. Everybody, he crossed over all the boundaries as far as 1990s go. That was huge. The other thing, when you follow sports as a kid, I always ask this one, like, what's your earliest sports memory? What's the first time you can remember watching a game on television? And like, for me, it was probably like the 1988 Super Bowl. It was,
oh man, you're gonna steal this from me. You're gonna steal this from me, Patrick.
Is that yours too?
Before you say it, hold on. Like, I want to make sure that we're like, I don't want you to say it and then it looks like I copied you, right?
All right.
Joe Montana, Jerry Rice against the Bengals, Super Bowl.
Yeah, that would have been one of the 20 something. But yeah, that's mine too. And I like watched it.
Yeah.
And then that's essentially where my sports knowledge starts.
Sorry, man. Joe Montana, John Taylor.
Oh, you're right. Jerry Rice was the MVP. John Taylor
caught the touchdown. Caught the pass. Yeah.
Good catch.
Yep. Exactly, man. So same thing. 100% exact same thing. Joe Montana was my first, sports figure. Like, clearly I just said a couple minutes ago, Jordan kind of like took me to that level, but Joe Montana was like the guy, like my family, we were 49er fans. They bought me the little plastic 49er helmet and the 16 jersey.
Yep. I had my favorite teams of those too.
Yeah.
Wearing them around.
Yeah. So that was it, man. I saw that and then Jordan made me think that I could do it.
Definitely. Sports, maybe this is a boy thing, but sports is where you bond with your father first, I think, because that's where I learned about where colleges were, because you would watch college football or college basketball and you'd be like, Dad, where's Penn State? Oh, it's in Pennsylvania. Oh, okay. Hey, Dad, where's Marquette? Hey, Dad, what is Boston College a good university? Like, you would just ask these questions and then your dad would be like, oh yeah, that's on this side of the country. That's over here. Your favorite player in the pros, he went to this college. And that's essentially where like I got interested in college through sports. And then with my dad was angry sports fan. I never knew who my dad liked. I just knew who my dad hated. I knew my dad hated
Cowboys.
My dad loved the Cowboys, so he hated Joe Montana. Well, I'm from Texas. I grew up in Texas, so it's Cowboys. I was a Raider fan, but all my family is Cowboys. So my dad hated Joe Montana. He was a Lakers fan, so he hated Danny Ainge and Larry Bird. And then later, my dad hated Reggie Miller. So I just knew who my dad hated. I never knew who he was actual fan of. So I think that's how we bond with our fathers initially. But that being said, I had a friend and we were into sports. We collected football cards and he had a mom. He was a single parent household and he was into sports. And at some point we're playing at his house and his mom's like, you guys want to play football in the backyard? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, what are you going to do? And she's like, I'll throw you the passes. And she's throwing us balls. I'm like, girls can throw a football? But that's what she did. She was like, oh, I'm going to throw a football to my son. My son likes football and his friend, and I'll throw some passes to him. It blew my mind at an early age that could be done. And then I got it. I was like, oh, this is cool. So,
yeah, I mean, my first experience, with my dad, well, first of all, I'll just say that college sports, you named all those schools, man, we didn't know those schools. like those, I mean, I think you had like a Harvard, which you knew only because it was, publicized.
Right. Like, Dad, what's Ivy League?
Yeah, exactly. Like what we knew was like, because UNM, the Lobos, that was like that was the state of New Mexico's pro team. Like New Mexico State and UNM, like, because New Mexico doesn't have pro sports. So
right. Same with my hometown. Yeah, we had no pro sports. The college is king.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was UTEP and we had our college. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, like growing up was like the Western Athletic Conference, the WAC.
Yeah,
right?
the WAC.
Yep. So I mean, it was like Colorado State and New Mexico State and what did you say?
Air Force was
Air
one.
Force, yeah.
Air
Like
Force.
these small schools, man.
Hawaii. Hawaii was in the WAC for a
Hawaii,
while.
exactly.
WAC.
I mean, you didn't have those big schools, and when you did, it was like you made it to the NCAA, and you were 16th. Like you were like the bubble team that made it in, and you played the number one and just got murdered because you were like horrible, right? So I mean, that was my experience growing up with sports. Like you just didn't have that cool team to like win the championship.
The other interesting thing of a small town or smallish town, when your local sports team college gets hot, the town lights up. The town is following the scores. I like when the town starts calling all the players by their first name and they're fans of them. And then you would be like, the game would be on and you would hear cheering from other houses while the game is going on and you're rooting for it. One of the advantages that middle to small town that the big town doesn't necessarily have is when your team gets hot, everybody's on the same page. Everybody's pumped up for the team.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. And I mean, the small town, I mean, that's what you have. I mean, I remember listening to games on the radio. I mean, you couldn't watch it on TV. You were like laying on the floor, listening to it on the radio, like just anticipating like every move. Like people don't do that anymore. I mean, how many people listen to it on a radio? You could see every game that you could ever want,
Yeah.
So
I had the uncle who would turn on the game on the television, turn down the sound and put the radio on to the game. I was like, this is a power move. I don't know how he thought to do this. This is just such a power move that the TV broadcast is not enough for me. Yeah. I need the radio broadcast.
Well, you know what's funny also about small town, kind of local teams, small state, I'll say, is when they're good, you get behind them. When they're not good, you are still hoping that they're going to be good. Like how many, like my dad to this day will, hey, so the Lobos, they got this new coach, they got this new recruit. They're going to be so good this year. Oh, did you see the game? Like even when they're not good, like there's this hope that somehow they're going to get over and be good. And like, it's so funny. I'll talk to him. I'm like, they're not going to be good. Like you just know, you're like, okay, so they got to recruit like one.
Yes. Somehow with the local sports team, it's like a reflection on you. If the sports team is good, you're good. If the sports team is good, your city's good. The program's good. And then like, even as a kid, like, you would have different favorite teams with your friends. If your team lost come Monday morning, you were an idiot. You're like, your team lost. What a moron you are for liking that team. And you'd have to be like, shut up, dude. Shut up. You don't know. We took it so personally as a little kid, identifying with sports and cities. And then the performance was the direct result of it. No subjectivity, win or lost. So funny like that.
Yeah. Do you remember, I'm just going to bring this up. Do you remember, like, I don't know if you had a local newspaper, but we had one, and clearly our local newspaper was like 4 pages, right? Like, but the outside page, like the middle page, and that was it. And like the sports was like one section of the paper. Do you remember when you could pick the winners? So like NFL season would come around and they would have all 16 games. And then at the bottom, it had like your Monday night game and you had to pick the score. And every week, you'd be so excited to like, oh, I'm going to pick all the winners and I'm going to fill out the score to try and like win the week or whatever it was. Now you have fantasy football. I mean, players are scoring, getting points, all this random shit. But back then it was like you had a newspaper insert where you circled the winners of the teams, hoping to like guess them all and pick the final score. And like how things have changed. I mean, now you're like picking like, we didn't have that. Yeah,
that's true. Anything sports and like an activity for like a young boy, it could have been hours of activity. Football cards, you would study the football cards. You would sort of like go through the numbers. I would try and me and my friends would quiz each other and we would go, start with number 1, go as far as you can up, name a player who wears that jersey number. And you would go, number 1, Cam Newton, number 2, Doug Flutie, number 3. And then you would just go through the jerseys, and that was like our little game. And then incidentally, of course, none of us got laid till well into our 20s, but it was a fun game.
I was just going to say, I don't know any of those. You're number 1, Cam Newton. I'm like, gosh, who's number 2? Who's number 3? I don't know any of those.
Well, it's 23? Starting to all make sense now. The difficult 20 through 27 that occurred for a young Pat Ramirez. I'm turning this all into to introspective now at this point. At the end of this, I will hate my parents.
You do know who number 1 and number 2 and 3 were, so you got that.
Right. I remember it always got tricky. Once we got out of the teens, then it was tricky. Then we would fail. Yeah. I remember as little kids. Well, final question before I get to the movie game. I'm very pumped on this movie game. I have a great thing. Right. Final question though. You work in the industry. You're one of the rare people. You went from college. You work in the industry. You studied filmmaking from when you graduated college, early 2000s, versus filmmaking now. How has it changed? I imagine a lot of the media is different in the digital realm, in the online realm. How has it changed from when you graduated to now in the field you work in?
Man, a lot, in the sense that anyone can do it now. I mean, that idea that I went into school, like, I can't, like, how can I make a film? I mean, gosh, look at this, man. Like, everyone has one now. And I mean, the quality on them is not that bad. Back in the day, we grew up when you had the flip phone and the photo was like a GIF, there was no quality to be, it didn't even take video. I think it was just photo only. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge change. I mean, everyone now can afford, even the equipment. I mean, I'm looking at a camera right now that's on this call. I mean, it's $500. I mean, I remember the first camera I bought was like $2,000, and that was like my early graduation present, Christmas present, birthday present, like next 5 years of those presents. And nowadays people can just, the equipment is so good. But I can tell you the main difference is the respect for the craft, the respect for the art form. You don't need to respect it anymore, because you can just pick up a camera and heck, I mean, I don't even have one of the TikTok accounts. I don't do that shit, but every once in a while, like, one of my friends will have it, usually females, and they're like, oh, look at this TikTok video, or send it. And, they're editing on TikTok. I mean, all of this stuff that is like so trendy now, it's like, oh, let me like cover the camera and like all of a sudden I appear with clothes on. Like, I mean, that's just basic film editing, right? But like nowadays, like these things are like, they called it movie magic back in the day. There's really no magic anymore. I mean, like, well, I'm gonna take that back. The magic is like less behind the curtain. So I think that's changed. But the one thing that I don't think the young filmmaker is learning is why. The why. They know all the tricks and like the how. But why do you do it? Why, there's a reason why you want to have a camera in a certain place. There's a reason why you want to edit a certain thing. It's going to make people feel a certain way. You know what, man? I think that might be lost forever. I don't know that film school, the way that I knew it, learning on film, like shooting film, where you had to take light readings, you had to do math, really. I mean, it was like, what's the speed of the film? What's this? Nowadays, you turn on a camera, you push some buttons. What you see on the screen is what you get. Like I remember the first time I shot film on a Bolex camera, which filmmakers might know, but it's like one of those that you reel up, like the old car that you like pulled the string and it went. It was the way the camera
James, that was a lawnmower.
Yeah, exactly. You reeled it up, man, and then you hit go and the thing was spun. I shot shot some film on that, and film's not cheap, by the way. Like you spend money to buy the film, then you have to process the film. And I remember like spending the money to buy the film. I shot, like went out, there's this beautiful scene, like there was wind, there was rain, the sun was backlighting things. And I sent the film out thinking I'm going to get this beautiful image coming back. Well, what I got was this dark image, and it was really dark, and there was no one.
And James said to his crew, "This film's in black and white now, bitches."
No, it was black and white. First of all, you bought black and white film because to shoot color film, you had a budget. Like you had to go with the affordable film stock, and that was black and white. But yeah, man, and you didn't have a crew either, really. And I mean, you did develop crews and your friends and film school would help you out, that camaraderie that you had with your classmates, which was great. Also, another thing that you can't recreate, but you learn the hard way, and you learn the expensive way, man. Like that was not cheap either. Nowadays, you hit a button, you see what you get. If you don't like it, you do it again. It's instant, right? I think it's the world we live in. Everything's instant. Right. The way films were made in the past, it wasn't. You waited. And
it seems like we went from analog to digital very quickly. It almost makes me, and of course it could go in no other way. It almost makes me think, what is the kid now going to say when they're 40 years old? How are they going to complain about younger generations? They're going to say like, these kids don't know these. Back in my day, we had LTE and that was it. Yeah. They don't even know. Sure, we had Postmates and Uber Eats to bring us food to our doorstep, but we still had to get up and go to the door. These kids are lazy.
Yeah, no, I think it's the Ks, man. It's like it's like 4K, 8K, 12K, 20K, like VR. Like that's probably going to be it. Right? Like this whole augmented reality, virtual reality experience. That's probably what the 40 years from now kid is going to say, like, right. Whoa, you're watching a movie? Like in the movie. Like,
back in my day, we actually had to take beginning tennis.
Exactly. So, I mean, so that's, I think the main difference is it just, like it's too easy now, I think. And the
easier it gets, you're right. That's the way technology goes. It has to go that way. The easier it gets, the more gets produced, but there still will never be any substitute for a compelling story told correctly. Storytelling is still key. And I think even though we have a lot of stuff out there to consume, I think the best stuff still does rise to the top. Now it just seems we have more stuff to weed through till we get to that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to hope that your audience grows as well, right? You have to hope that the audience sees that. I mean, clearly you and I are going to see that because we saw some really great films being made in the past, but today's audience, I mean, they're consumed with this, man. They're consumed with the TikTok videos and Instagram videos. Mm-hmm. And like that audience may not give a shit about a Good Will Hunting or, another film that might have been just really well written and well acted and well shot and well directed. Mm-hmm. That's like, what? Like, who cares? Like, this is funny or not,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. The movie game I have set for you today, James, I'm going to explain it to you, but the theme of this game, tailor-made for you and I, is college. So
I'm going to lose, by the way. Like, I'm the one like film student, filmmaker that is not good at movies. So
oh really?
Yeah. I never have been.
How can that be?
I don't know, man. There are those filmmakers like, probably like the Tarantinos that like have seen every movie. They have their own movie library. I haven't seen them all.
You're like a football coach that says, how much for a first down?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, okay. Don't worry, because I have a practice one for you to get you started too.
Let's do it.
Here are the ways that you can score points in this game. Number one, I'm going to give you two movies and you're going to guess which one has the higher Rotten Tomatoes score. That's number one. Other way to get points, I will read you the movie description. And if you think you know the movie, You stop me and chime in.
Okay.
That's also how you can get points. All right. This is a practice one. Let's see how you do. Practice. Here is the description of the first movie. Chime in if you know the movie.
Okay.
A Harvard student creates a networking site. He is sued by the twins who claim he stole their idea.
Oh my God. I know oh man. It's a Facebook story. Right?
The Facebook story, is that your answer?
No. I don't know the answer.
Okay.
Give me the first letter.
The first letter is a T. This is practice. So, go with, let me in on your thoughts. Don't worry about that.
Oh, no. The Social Network.
All right. You got it. From 2010, The Social Network. So you would have got a point for that description.
All right.
Okay. Versus this movie. Having gotten a taste of college life, a drastically changed farm girl returns home for Thanksgiving break with her new best friend, a flamboyant party animal who is clearly a fish out of water in a small farm town.
You know what? Most people would probably know this. I don't have a clue.
The movie is from 1993, Son-in-Law, starring the great Pauly Shore.
You know what? I don't even think I've seen it.
James, go get Son-in-Law right now. It's a great movie. Okay, The Social Network versus Son-in-Law. Which one has the higher Rotten Tomatoes score? Practice round.
So here's a fun one. Rotten Tomatoes, a high score. Is that good or is that bad?
100 is the best score you can have on Rotten Tomatoes.
And does that mean it's a good movie or a bad
movie? Am I really explaining Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, you are.
I took beginning tennis and majored in psychology at an art school. Why am I telling you about Rotten Tomatoes? Hey, Pat, tell me about, I'm familiar with Siskel, but not Ebert.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, man, Rotten Tomatoes makes me feel like a higher score would be bad. It's rotten, right?
If it's rotten, yeah, it has a low score. It's rotten. And if it's fresh, then it has the highest score.
Okay. So just like you would expect. Okay.
1 out of 100. Right. 1 out of 100.
The Social Network was probably like a higher score.
Going Social Network? Okay.
Yeah.
The Social Network on Rotten Tomatoes is at 96%. Son-in-Law, 21%. You would have got that one right. It was a practice. That was a practice.
That's easy. Okay.
Pat, Quentin Tarantino? Tarantino, James. Tarantino. All right, here we go. For real. Stop me if you know the title of this movie. Here we go. A fashionable sorority queen is dumped by her boyfriend. She decides to follow him to law school. While she is there, she figures out that there is more to her than just looks. Do you know the movie, James?
I don't know the movie.
From 2000. You got that right. I'm going to give that to you, James.
Dude, that was a straight guess, man. That was like a shot in the dark.
From 2001, Legally Blonde is the movie. You got 1 point for that.
So I'm going to guess automatically that is the lower Rotten Tomatoes score.
I haven't given you the other movie yet.
But I'm just going to guess.
Look at this. One guess right. You already got an ego on you, James. Movie number 2. This is what Legally Blonde is going up against. Here we go. Description. 4 college girls hold up a restaurant in order to fund their spring break vacation. While partying, drinking, and taking drugs, they are arrested only to be bailed out by a drug and arms dealer. Do you know the movie?
I don't. And I might want to take back my first guess.
Yeah. The movie is from 2012, Spring Breakers.
Oh yeah, that's pretty rotten, but I don't know, man. That's like they're battling in the below 50%.
This is a scary James Franco movie.
Okay,
so you got Legally Blonde versus Spring Breakers. Which one do you think has the higher score?
Wow, that's a tough one. Can I make a guess that neither of them is above 50%?
Yeah, you can guess. We don't get any points for that, James.
All right.
Quit rewriting this game.
I'm gonna guess Spring Breakers only because I don't know that it can get much worse than Legally Blonde. But I guess
Really?
they created a play out of Legally Blonde. So clearly
Good point.
a lot of people enjoyed it. I'm going to go for the game purpose, not my own opinion. I'm going to go Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde, 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Spring Breakers, 67%. James, you're 1 for 1. You got a point.
All right.
You know where you were correct on that one. You need to think like the critics, not like yourself. This is a game that you really need to put the ego aside.
All right, it's gone. Ego gone.
That's philosophy, Pat Ramirez. All right, number 2 matchup. Stop me when you know the answer. Here we go. The most popular kid on campus meets a beautiful journalist who makes him realize that maybe he's afraid to graduate. Guess the movie, James.
Oh, man.
Nothing?
Wilder?
Van Wilder is correct, James.
You're kidding me.
James, you are throwing up these end of the shot clock bombs.
Dude,
you nailed 2 of them.
These are full
2002.
These are full quarters, man. They're not even half quarters. They're full quarters.
From 2002, the movie is Van Wilder. You got another point.
Wow. All right.
Okay. Movie number 2. Van Wilder is going up against this movie. Stop me if you know it. Convinced his thesis will have him graduate from Harvard, a stuffy student finds himself at the mercy of a homeless man who who holds his paper hostage. Do you know this movie?
Not a clue. I'm not even going to guess on that one.
No guess. From 1994 with honors.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
This was a Brendan Fraser, Joe Pesci, mid 90s movie. So you got Van Wilder versus With Honors. What do you think?
I'll take With Honors only because I know I've seen the movie poster. I've seen it.
Great movie poster. You're right.
Yeah. So I have to go with that. Yeah.
Also, one of the movie posters in Blockbuster that you walked by the movie a million times, but you never saw it, but you knew that movie poster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you're going With Honors.
With Honors.
Van Wilder, rotten, 18%. With Honors, rotten, 17%, James. You missed that one.
Whoa.
Van Wilder won that one. You're still at 3 points.
I should have known because you have Brendan Fraser
made these tough.
Versus Van Wilder. What's his name?
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. You should have known just Ryan Reynolds alone was going to be that extra percent.
Good thinking.
Not
too late.
That good thinking. Yeah.
Too late, but good thinking.
Too late.
All right. You have 3 points. Final matchup. There we go. Let's start taking this seriously. Movie description. 3 friends attempt to recapture their glory days by opening up a fraternity near their alma mater.
Old School.
You got it. From 2003, Old School.
Yep.
Point for you. Versus a group of bullied outcasts and misfits resolve to fight back after their house is burned down by the rival fraternity. They're forced to form their own fraternity in self-defense. They employ high-tech warfare against the jocks to win the school's Greek games during homecoming.
No go.
No? Oh, I'm disappointed, James.
Is this supposed to be an easy one?
I think you're going to be upset when I tell you the name of this movie.
Okay.
Shot clock's running down. You've picked up your dribble.
I'm done.
Threw the ball out of bounds. From 1984, Revenge of the Nerds.
You know what? I'm not disappointed because I don't know that I've seen Revenge of the Nerds.
What?
I told
you.
You
never seen Revenge of the Nerds?
I warned you up front.
You did.
You know?
Yes, you did. You need to see Revenge of the Nerds. This might have been the first movie I ever saw a naked woman in. There is a very gratuitous 80s nudity scene and Revenge of the Nerds. And I saw it as a kid and I was like, what the fuck?
Well, I'm glad I didn't see it then. I mean, I think in old school there were far better naked women.
Definitely. This is 1984. Keep in mind, this was the analog of nudity. Okay. Old school versus Revenge of the Nerds. What do you think? Take me through your thought process.
I'm going old school. You have to, please don't let me down.
Old school, Rotten Tomato score, 60%. Revenge of the Nerds, Rotten Tomato score, 69%. James, you went with your heart.
You know what? That old school was a good comedy, man.
Right. I agree, but I think the critics penalized it a little bit. We're talking critics here. I think the critics, the raunchiness might have lost them a couple points.
Yeah, Will Ferrell, come on, man.
Will Ferrell, peak Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn's throwing 100 miles an hour in that whole movie. The earmuffs. Very quotable movie.
Snoop Dogg was in there.
Yep. That's a movie I saw in the theaters. And then I think as soon as it was out on DVD, it was purchased.
Yeah.
Well, so James, you scored 4 points.
What does that mean?
Well, this is the first usage of this game where I've introduced the point system. Before I just did 2 movies head to head and you just got points from guessing it, but too many people were acing it. So I had to spice it up a little bit.
So you had movie buffs on here.
No, I've had everybody on here. I've had other comics. I've had old coworkers. I've had some, who else have I had on here? People I used to work with in the bicycle industry. It's a broad range. Everybody ends the show with the Rotten Tomatoes head-to-head game.
Sweet, man. Well,
so, James, this was good. We caught up. We talked ball. We talked sports. We talked art school and beginning tennis.
Yeah, man. It's good. It's good seeing you and virtually, right? Like this is the new communication method for everybody. Yeah. One day I'm going to have to head over to LA. And when I do, we'll have to get a drink and see each other in person, man. It's been 17 to 18 and 19 years.
17 years later, we have to get that drink, James.
Yep.
Thanks for doing this, James. We'll talk to you soon.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you, Pat.
That is the show this week, everyone. Thank you, James Bustamante, for joining me. And wow, did we catch up? I might need to play some basketball again. I'm inspired to get out there and work my fadeaway jumper again. Yeah. And James coming through with a very respectable Rotten Tomatoes score. Can't wait to see who challenges that score. Thank you everyone for listening, and don't forget you can see me doing live stand-up comedy via Zoom, via Flappers Comedy Club, April 2nd, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Me on your screens, so you have that to look forward to. Great show this week, everyone. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again very soon.